Okay, so I was featured in Develop's 2014 30 Under 30 as rising young talent in the industry, and I'm also a STEM video games ambassador, so I'm encouraging diversity within the industry as well. So I've not got years of experience, but what I do hope to achieve here is bridging the gap between academia and employment and help to maximize your potential with getting a job. So just a rundown of how I got into games personally. So I was at Abertay in Dundee, and I studied computer arts, and I specialized in 3D realistic environments in my last couple of years, because we do 4 years in Scotland. And my main goal at the time was to get a job. And at the time, I was focusing mainly on AAA, because it seemed like the most realistic option at the time. And so I was working really hard at uni, being proactive, collaboratively as well as personally, and mentoring some students and doing some other things. And then I saw that the job came up. The Chinese Room tweeted about a junior environment artist job. So I applied, and I did an art test, and then I got an interview down in Brighton. So I traveled all the way down to Brighton, and then I got the job before leaving uni, that was. So then I moved down straight after my showcase. But this method, it can't be followed systematically. Every story and journey that you hear from all these inspirational people here today, it can't really be followed exactly, because our industry is relatively young, so everybody's journey is kind of different into it. But just in case any of you don't know what the Chinese Room is, we're an award-winning indie development studio based in Brighton. We make experimental first-person games. A lot of the focus is on atmosphere, light, music, narrative, and aesthetics, rather than basing it on mechanics. And we're a very small company, where I think at maximum we're only maybe about 16 of us. But we're all very passionate, driven individuals. And we just want to really create experiences. Chinese Room Games, they kind of ask us to reconsider what a game actually is. So we released Everybody's Gone to the Rapture in August this year, and it received a lot of critical acclaim. And I've just got a trailer to show you in case you don't know what it is. Oh.
This is Dr. Catherine Collins.
Oh.
I don't know if anyone...
2 seconds.
This is Dr. Catherine Collins. I don't know if anyone will ever hear this. It's all over. I'm the only one left. There's data coming through faster than I can encode it. I've already lost 2 processors. They keep burning out.
Please, I love you. You need to get out of there. It's not safe.
I need you, Stephen. I need you here. I can open the gate manually. I can let you in.
It's too dangerous. You don't understand what's happening out here.
No, you don't understand. We can solve this. We can find a way.
Okay, people are disappearing. Shut it down now.
No. If you won't help me, I'll do it on my own.
We're responsible for all this. You and me.
It's not just you and me anymore, though, is it?
Okay, so who here has played Everybody's Gone to the Rapture? Any of you? Ooh, a few of you. Okay, so it was released on PlayStation 4. This was my first release, and I came in through mid-production, so I only really worked on it for maybe a year and a few months. So I learned a lot from a lot of the senior individuals at the company, and I had a lot of input as well, because I was only maybe one of 5 artists. Who here wants to maybe get involved in indie games? Working in indie, yeah. Does anybody want to work in AAA? It's a bit of a mix. Kind of happy to go wherever. So I'd never really considered working in indie. I didn't really think it was like a viable option, but actually 95% of the companies in the UK are micro studios, so that's averaging out at 120 staff. But the benefits of working in indie, or well, it's studio dependent really, is that you get more creative input, which I found really beneficial. And often you have to delve into kind of other areas that aren't necessarily your specialization as well. So what's really expected of an environment artist in indie? Well, every artist at the company contributes in all areas. You're not really like a cog in a machine just making rocks or whatever, but you'll be making like storytelling pivotal props, as well as generic ones, obviously. But you do have a lot more creative freedom, and Chinese room games, like, because we don't really have characters, you kind of have to show the characters in your artwork and spaces that you create. And a lot of the time we're trusted to work on our own as well. But not only like props, we're not just prop artists, like we actually make the entire scenes as well. We're often building around the actual narrative itself to support the narrative, because that's the main gameplay element, because obviously it's not mechanics based. So you're kind of making an impact on pivotal gameplay moments, as well as scheduling time efficiently. So this is obviously professional work, and it's made by a team, and there's a publisher, but we all started somewhere, but we kind of rarely talk about that. And that's something that we often see with personal development, is that actually being a really good artist takes a lot of time, but we often only ever speak about success and achievement, but not really what led to that. And I think we really need to talk more about failing, and learning from the failures that happen, and how do we progress from them to then create these sorts of games. And only 15% of students are very confident, and 32% are somewhat confident in their ability to get their first job, which is actually really low. That was an IGDA survey. But so where does this lack of confidence actually come from? And I think a lot of it kind of comes from, you see a lot of seniors and lead artists giving inspirational presentations, and often it's kind of a false representation of what's expected of you as a student and where you should kind of currently be to get your first job. But really it takes so long to actually master your trade, to actually get to that level. And so when you're kind of starting out, you're in the clueless range. So you kind of don't know what you don't know, really. You're kind of blissfully unaware. Then you kind of peak at naively confident, where you think you know everything, but you don't really. But then you kind of realize that there's so much you still have to learn, which can be really disheartening when you are kind of aware of that. And a lot of people are, like I've seen a lot of friends and students do this, is when they burn out and they drop out as well. But it's all just about time and kind of sticking with it and seeing that progress, and you will become the master. But a lot of pressure is kind of on to be this like industry ready, and at this level as a student. But how can you actually maximize your current potential? And especially as an artist, you really need to specialize. I think it's kind of like a given that you like don't be a generalist, and obviously you should be delving into other areas, but you don't really have enough time, especially when you're a student. It's really important to specialize when you only have like 3 to 4 years to kind of hone your skill to then be employable. So just kind of use your time wisely, really. And a really good method of doing this is like picking a 1, 3, 5, and 10-year plan, and then working backwards from that. So if you decide where you kind of want to see yourself in 10 years, how do you start that journey from today. It's especially important for artists to have this plan. But yeah, digital artists is a bit different as well, because you need to both be technically proficient as well as artistically proficient. So you kind of need to know this like whole flip side and get this balance of art fundamentals and really understanding and having a grasp of that and making your art really credible, as well as delving into current technology and staying up to date with that. But also putting context into your work is essential as well to kind of give it that edge. So this was an like one of the assets that I made for my art test at the Chinese room. And I was kind of just given a sketch and then had to build from that. So I kind of knew that maybe a lot of other people might have just kind of followed the sketch, but I wanted to add a slightly personal element to maybe give me a bit of edge and just to make the work a little bit more different as well. So I wanted to tell a story just through what I was making, and just by adding like a couple of patches or something like that can make a big difference, and it makes you question where does it kind of come from. So don't just kind of copy things that exist. You can think critically for yourself. You don't have to just copy what's already out there, and it will give you a certain edge if you add that kind of personal element to it as well and tell a deeper story within your work. And credibility and respect comes from critical thinking and critical analysis. So I find it really useful to find artists who it kind of inspire you, or you see yourself where you want to go, and you can deconstruct and analyze their work and try and reach that kind of visual fidelity that they're creating. And it's one of those things when you're a student, like it's that common saying of if you try and reach for the stars, you'll hit the clouds. So you might not quite match it, but what you will come out of it is that you've probably learned quite a lot just in the actual process itself. And you won't have failed because you will have learned so much as long as you're critiquing your work, which is probably one of the most important things to always be doing. But how can you prepare yourself as an artist when applying for jobs? So I think that preparing your portfolio, it's kind of like a given as an artist. You need to like get critique maybe from industry experts as well. Show only your best work, even if it's only like 2 pieces, like you'll only be judged by your worst piece of work. And make sure you've obviously specialized and that you're not just showing you're a 3D artist, but instead that you're an environment artist or character artist. Companies keep your portfolios. If you send them in, if you're suitable, you will know, we'll email you. But also don't lie. I think that's just like a life lesson, just don't lie anyway. But not on your CV or portfolio, because like the industry is really small. You will be found out, and you probably won't last long in a job if you have lied to get in. But also don't pigeonhole yourself. Don't just take the first job that's offered to you. I was offered a few jobs before going with the Chinese room, but when that came along, I knew it was the perfect fit for both me and the company. And you don't want to seem unreliable when you might get another job offer and then leave your current job, so you've only been in for like 3 months. It won't look very good or make you very credible. And professionalism, like watch out for your digital footprint. Alienating individuals and imposing negative attitudes within the games industry as well. And the industry kind of appears like this showbiz, elusive kind of place, but it's not really, and everybody in it's pretty nice, and so many people will be here to like give you and offer you so much advice if you just kind of reach out for it. And the sad fact is that when you get a job, you're suddenly credible, so you're going to get a lot more job offers. But companies, I think, have like a responsibility too to the students. I think it's like important that companies offer work placements to students, which isn't really done in our industry as much. And it's Develop magazine actually said that 21% in games industry jobs undertook work experience prior to entering the sector. Of every other creative industry jobs, the average is 41. So that's considerably lower than the other creative industries. But we can do more in the companies to help offer students that opportunity to get their foot in the door. And we've done that at the Chinese room with my old university. We got some students involved, and we allowed them to make a couple of props for the game. And it's just so they can also have that on their CV. That just gives them that little extra edge. But then also it's the student's responsibility that, of course, you yourself can be very proactive and take part in game jams and competitions like Dare to Be Digital. But then also making sure you're staying up to date currently with on things like Twitter and LinkedIn is very important in the games industry to just stay current as well. And so you do have to work really hard and be proactive, but don't get overwhelmed by stress. And another graph. So stress suppresses creativity. And I'm sure like a few of you might have seen this before, but if you have like a lack of stress, you're kind of in that stage of like lazy, there's no pressure, you're kind of blissfully unaware, and you won't feel that pressure to really be creative or do that much work, so you won't be very productive. And then there's the flip side of when you have far too much pressure, and I've seen that firsthand at university. You're under so much pressure to get a job in industry, and it's very competitive as well, but that's the kind of point when it's like based more on anxiety, panic, and you kind of break down, and that's when you'll burn out or drop out, and yeah, lack of creativity. So you kind of need this like optimal like segment of pressure, so you're doing just enough work, but then not going overboard on it as well, and so don't stress now as you don't really have that much control over of like the future. Obviously, like you can be proactive and you can be doing things to like stay current, and there are things that can give you like a slight edge, but just like you're doing really well as it is, just being at uni, and the fact that you come to these conferences means that you're probably not the ones who need to hear this, that you need to work harder or anything, because it's just more pressure, unnecessary pressure on you. So just don't burn out before you even enter the industry. And yeah, just don't be too hard on yourself or on your classmates. It's really not a competition. And it's important to really surround yourself with like-minded, progressive, diverse thinking individuals, because you're going to be the ones who are going to contribute to actually changing the industry. Thank you. Is there any questions? Yes.
When you first got into university, what kind of skill level did you have to begin with?
What was that, sorry?
Hello.
Hello.
So when you first kind of applied to university, when was it you kind of started 3D modeling? Did you start as you kind of got to university, or did you do it a couple of years before?
Yeah, I'd done a little bit at high school. So I actually graduated from high school in 2007. And we were using Blender at the time because it's like free software. But I didn't really understand that you could have a career in games or have a career in commercial art. So I always knew I was good at art, but I didn't realize you could kind of go down that digital route. But then I took 3 years out and then realized you kind of can do that. And that's when I decided I really wanted to work as an environment artist and wanted to hone my skills in that sense. So it wasn't really until I went to Abertay in 2010, and they have courses there like that don't necessarily teach you how to how to make anything in 3D, but it just asks you to like make scenes maybe in 3D, but it doesn't actually teach you the technical proficiency. So it's very much self-taught. And I think like some people struggle with that concept when they go to university, that a lot of it is self-taught, and they think they might be like given it, like told how to do things instead. So I think that was a bit different to grasp. But yeah, it was mainly like from about first year till fourth year. But like I really started to specialize in third year and fourth year. So in Scotland, we do like a bachelor's, and then the final year is the honours year. But yeah, it was in those main 2 years that I actually started to specialize.
Oh my god, no thanks. Someone catch.
In terms of when you first went for your kind of interview with the Chinese rooms, how much of that do you think, of you getting the job, how much of that was your skill and how much of that was kind of like your kind of work ethic and kind of like ambition and stuff, as well as just your skill? Like, how much do you think they took that into account?
I think it was definitely a mix. I was really careful when I saw the job come up. I made sure to really kind of hone my portfolio at the time and all of my online presence as well. So I was really careful to sort out everything to do with like my CV and my LinkedIn and everything, and really keep it current and make sure it was like environment artist specific first. Then when I applied and I was kind of given the sketch and like the technical specs of what I was making, I kind of was like, well, how can I push this in a different way that's going to make it more unique from the other candidates as well. So it was kind of half that, like I knew half that was kind of like the technical approach, but then I could also show this like artistic approach to make me credible in that sense as well, and to show I'm like, I can think for myself, and that I don't just need to be told like make a barrel and then just make a barrel, you know. And but it wasn't actually until the interview that you get to kind of explain your position there, or like how you can contribute in other ways, because like at an art test you really are just kind of judged by your work, but you're kind of judged by who you are in the interview. So I was really aware that I had to kind of, I really prepared. I actually made a document that was really helpful of just possible interview questions when I was on the train down, and then just kind of wrote the answers myself and just kind of went through it and thought about what's a more interesting answer than actually just the most generic answer. So like for instance, one of the questions was to do with what's your favorite game? And I took into consideration, well, that it might be more beneficial if I mention, well, I like lots of games, of course, so maybe mentioning something that's more based on storytelling would have more benefit, and then actually have a bit more of a conversation when you get to the interview as well. So just thinking about it in that sense, like just always keeping in mind the company that you're talking to, and that it's not this massive kind of faceless corporation where they just kind of want you to be technically good and then they'll just file you off somewhere. It was like, where's that personal element, and how do you approach work? How professional are you, and how do you expand on your professionalism? So yeah, a bit of both.
I'll pass that back, because I'm not going to.
Okay, which side do I speak it into? Is it this side? Yeah. Okay, it's difficult to tell. During what you were saying before, you mentioned about not seeing people as competition or rivals. Is there any way that you know of to try and avoid thinking like that? Or
yeah, I think
try and get you out of that mindset?
It is difficult, because I remember thinking, I mean, the reason I wanted to say it is because it's so different once you're actually in industry. But when you're a student, you're under so much pressure to be the best. So if you've got like 10 3D artists, you feel that need to be the best 3D artist. So you've got the best edge, but you can...
So it is quite normal then to feel
Yeah, I mean, I felt it as well. But the reality is like now that I've left uni, so many of those other people as well, they've got jobs in industry, and we collaborate and we talk about this and our experiences, and they've all got jobs as well. So I mean, I think it's just finding, I think you can't really help but feel that, but just understand and recognize that, you know, it's not really needed, and it's just going to add to everyone being a bit more stressed. But I think you can kind of alleviate that by having respect for your classmates as well, by taking part in things like game jams with them, and I think that helps a lot.
Very well, thank you.
Thank you.
Who wants it? Down there? Okay, let's see how good my throw is.
What made you make the decision to deviate from going from AAA into indie?
I hadn't really even thought of the possibility that I could be working in an indie company, you know, because they're so small companies, we so rarely hire. It just didn't seem like it was realistic. It seemed like all of the stories I'd heard at like these kind of events was always that you can get your foot in the door, but it's often with a big company, and you'll get maybe like an internship or elsewhere. And I was kind of thinking that's probably what's going to happen. So that was kind of my main route. But it wasn't until the actual job opportunity came up at the Chinese room that I was like, well, that would be the perfect fit, because I delve into so many other areas. Like I do a lot of 2D as well. I did like a lot of 2D on Rapture, and I know a lot about design and level design, so I contribute a lot in those areas. And it just seemed like a better fit because I have a lot more creative freedom and can actually have that creative input as well. So it was everybody's benefiting, but it wasn't until the opportunity kind of arose that I was able to take it.